can't help but notice that in pretty much every avoidant video on YouTube, there's always a comment accusing the avoidant of being a narcissist. Of course, one search on YouTube is enough to tell you that the avoidant versus narcissist debate is very popular, and one that usually ends with the YouTuber saying, avoidants are not narcissists. And yet every day, more comments accusing avoidants of being narcissist keep happening. But recently, something happened that I cannot unhear. I came across what might be the ultimate red flag in this whole avoidant versus narcissist debate. I wiretapped a real phone call. Yes, a real phone call. And it was between this couple fighting, and in it you can see the subtle red flag that goes unnoticed by everyone. Now, I know what you're thinking. Jen, how could you have possibly done this illegal thing? I didn't. I made it up. The whole phone call is a total fake. You really think I'm out here in a trench coat with a wiretap kit from 1996? Please, I can't even figure out which remote to use on my TV. But even though this call is technically fake, we're going to play a game. I want you to guess if this is a narcissist or an avoidant.
Hey, you free to talk?
Yeah, I've got a minute. What's up?
I just felt kind of weird about last night. You pulled back and I wasn't sure if something was off or if I said something.
Here we go again.
What does that mean?
Look, it's just anytime I take any kind of space, it turns into this whole emotional spiral. I didn't respond because I needed to decompress, that's all.
Okay, but it felt like you were shutting me out. And when I don't hear from you, my mind goes to some dark places.
Look, I get it, but I also just wish you'd trust that not everything is some deeper issue. I mean, sometimes I just need quiet. It's not about you.
I wasn't trying to accuse you. I just wanted to feel connected again. I don't know where we stood.
Look, I was finally starting to feel normal again, but then you just turned this into something it didn't need to be.
I wasn't trying to make it a thing. I just needed to know if we were okay.
And I'm telling you, we were okay. But every time I start to relax, I feel like I have to brace for this kind of conversation.
So me asking for reassurance pushes you away?
No, not exactly. It's just when reassurance turns into some crazy demand to manage your anxiety, that's when I start questioning if this is healthy.
That's not what I meant.
I know, but still. This dynamic is starting to feel heavy. Relationships should feel easier than this. That's all I'm saying.
If you guessed narcissist, you're right. And if you guessed avoidant, you're right. Technically, if you just look at the words spoken, it can pass as either. But if you look and listen a little bit closer, the red flag is there, hidden in plain sight. It's the intent. It leaks through patterns, not words. Don't panic. In dialogue, it can still leak through in tone, framing, and micro-manipulations. What are those? Well, let's start with the tone. This is how something is said, not just what is said. So with avoidance, you'll notice that they sound flat or emotionally shut down because they feel overwhelmed. But narcissist, they often sound weirdly calm. And I know what you're thinking. Aren't all narcissists usually loud and dramatic and attention-seeking? Yes, but that's grandiose narcissism. What we're dealing with here is something more deceptive, vulnerable narcissism. And that kind hides behind the emotional depth, soft voices, and intellectual detachment. The kind that mirrors avoidant behavior almost perfectly, but with one key difference. It isn't trying to protect itself, it's trying to control you. More on that in a minute. Let's move on to framing. Framing is how they position the story. Who's the good guy, who's to blame, and what's really going on. Avoidants tend to frame the situation as too much for them to handle, but narcissists, they frame the other person as fundamentally flawed. It's not, I got overwhelmed. It's, you're needy, dramatic, and unstable. Finally, we have micro-manipulations. These are tiny emotional tactics used to keep the power. Things like sighing mid-sentence to make you feel guilty, or saying, we were fine until you brought this up. It's not yelling, it's emotional chess. Micro-manipulations are how narcissists set the emotional traps that make you question yourself. Now, this is all very well and good, but I think you'd benefit most by seeing this in real time. So let's go back to that fake wiretap phone call. I want to show you 3 specific moments that, on the surface, seem normal. But if you slow them down and really listen, maybe a bit of a red flag. Let's start with the first leak, tone.
I just felt kind of weird about last night. You pulled back and I wasn't sure if something was off or if I said something.
Here we go again.
Did you hear that? It's tossed out like a sigh, like a joke. But tone-wise, that calm, almost smug delivery, that's not someone feeling overwhelmed. That's someone feeling superior. People really underestimate the importance of tone. And there's this old theory called the 7-38-55 rule. And while it's not perfect, it makes a powerful point. It comes from Albert Mebrium, a professor of psychology at UCLA. He found that when we're interpreting someone's feelings, only 7% of the meaning comes from their actual words. 38% comes from the tone of voice, and 55% comes from body language. Now, obviously, you can't see body language over the phone, but you can feel that tone. You can hear it in the way someone exhales, in the way that they drag on the word again, and with the cold, measured pace. And when someone sounds this unbothered, this detached, right as you're opening up, because remember that "here we go again" came at the beginning of the conversation, that's not avoidance, that's dominance. And I'm sure you're wondering, can avoidance say "here we go again" as well? Yes, they absolutely can, and that's what makes this so hard. Avoidance can sound cold. They can shut down, they can say the exact same words and mean something totally different. Typically, when avoidance says "here we go again," it usually comes from a place of emotional fatigue. It's like they're bracing for a conversation they don't feel equipped to have. There's frustration, yes, but there's also fear underneath. The narcissist says "here we go again." It's not fear, it's a power play. It's not, "I can't handle this." It's "you're being ridiculous and I'm not even going to pretend to take you seriously." It's a subtle way to invalidate you before the conversation even starts. And they already decided that you are the problem. Avoidants know that they are the problem, but they don't have the tools to have the emotional conversations and they get overwhelmed. Same words, totally different intent, and that's what leaks through in the tone. Avoidants say it to protect themselves, but narcissists say it to put you in your place. And if you're not paying close attention, you won't just miss the red flag, you'll convince yourself that it was never even there. Next up, we have framing.
I was finally starting to feel normal again, but then you turned it into this whole thing it didn't need to be.
Now, listen closely here. This isn't just a complaint, it's reframing of reality. You didn't raise a concern. Your partner's implying you ruined something. You. That's the story being told underneath the line. But let's simplify this. Avoidants tend to frame things like, "Hey, I got scared, I shut down, I didn't know how to handle the closeness." Or they simply don't bother trying to frame things because they refuse to talk about the closeness. But narcissists, they almost frame it like, "You messed this up. I was doing fine until you made it messy." It's always someone else's fault, never theirs. And that leads us to micromanipulation. We see an example of that in the call when the potential narcissist says,
Relationships should feel easier than this. That's all I'm saying.
"Okay, on first listen, this actually sounds wise and grounded, like something your therapist might say, but the timing of it and the placing of it, the consistency of it, that's a red flag in my opinion." Because right before that line was said, the one that asked, "Okay, I didn't mean to make you feel that way. I just wish you'd told me you needed space." And in response, they get this philosophical truth bomb that implies they're too much to love. It's like the narcissist pressed the reset button on the conversation, but in a way that resets your confidence and not the conflict. Can an avoidant say something like this? Sure. Avoidants often retreat into logic when the emotions start to rise. They can say things like, "This shouldn't be so hard," or "Maybe we're just too different." But avoidants use that language to escape the moment. Narcissists use it to control the moment. And that brings us to the part that no one wants to admit. Yes, avoidants can say any of these lines. They can flip into the victim mode, and they can pull the affection when they feel threatened. They can drop those mature sounding one-liners mid-argument. But here's the difference. An avoidant eventually shuts down. They emotionally check out. They go quiet. They disappear into space. A narcissist? They don't check out. They circle. They keep talking. They keep reframing. They keep baiting you into feeling like you're the unstable one. It's not the words, it's the pattern. And it's the intent that's driving that pattern. Avoidants want to escape connection because it overwhelms them, but narcissists want to control connection because it feeds them. One look at the narcissistic abuse cycle, and it's enough to prove that. You have 4 main stages. You have the love bombing, devalue, discard, and the Hoover stage. Rinse and repeat over and over again. It's literally in the narcissist's nature to stay stuck in this cycle. It's who they are, and that's the biggest tell in my opinion. So all these people accusing avoidants of being narcissist, they might be right, but that's the only because you can't really tell at first. The pattern of intent is how you can tell, and it takes time for a pattern to develop. But that brings us to an interesting quandary. What if you can't tell because your partner has gaslit you so much that you don't even believe in your own reality anymore? Well, that's why I've created the intent test, a test that you can give yourself to help you determine if you are dealing with a narcissist. Here's how it works. You're not trying to diagnose someone as an avoidant or narcissist. All you care about is observing how they respond to conflict, connection, and accountability over time. You'll do this by asking yourself these 5 questions. 1. Is the distance about survival or control? When they pull away, do they seem overwhelmed, like they're shutting down or trying to protect themselves from emotional intensity? If you answered yes to this, that's more consistent with avoidant behavior. But if the distance feels strategic, like it's designed to keep you uncertain or anxious until you reach back out, that's a control tactic. Avoidants create distance to reduce emotional pressure. Narcissists create distance to shift the power dynamic in their favor. 2. Do they seem conflicted or condescending? Avoidants often look unsure of themselves in emotional situations. They might fumble through conversations, contradict themselves, or express discomfort when trying to explain their needs. Narcissists, on the other hand, come off as composed, even smug. They don't waver, they don't reflect. They act like they're 2 steps ahead, and your emotional reactions are beneath them. If they treat your concerns like an inconvenience or use words like dramatic or irrational or needy without ever examining their own role, take note. That's not confusion, that's dismissal. 3. Are they trying to avoid pain or inflict it? Avoidants tend to withdraw when conversations get too emotionally charged. They may go silent or physically leave the room. It's about shutting the emotion down. Narcissists do the opposite. They stay in the conversation long enough to weaponize it. They'll use your vulnerability to score a point. They'll bring up something you told them in confidence, and they'll say things that sound wise but leave you feeling small. If you leave the conversation feeling embarrassed, destabilized, or ashamed, and that seems to happen a lot, it's not random. That's intent. 4. When you stop engaging, do they panic or do they punish you? If you stop texting, pulling back, or go quiet, what happens? Avoidants might disappear entirely. They often don't know how to re-engage. If they do reach out, it's usually tentative or awkward. But narcissists, they notice the shift immediately and they respond with punishment. That might be sudden discard, sarcastic jabs, stonewalling, or guilt-laced message designed to pull you back in. The goal isn't reconnection, it's reestablishing dominance. 5. Do they change when they feel safe? This is the real test. When you're consistent, patient, and open, do you see any change in how they respond? When avoidants feel safe, they will occasionally soften. You'll notice small shifts like staying present during conflict, expressing something emotional, or showing accountability. Narcissists, however, don't show lasting change. They'll adapt their behavior just long enough to get what they want. Then they revert as soon as they feel comfortable again. What looks like progress is just part of the cycle. If you're unsure who you're dealing with, watch the pattern. Don't focus on the best moment and don't focus on the worst moment either. Focus on what keeps happening, even after things seem resolved. Avoidants struggle with closeness, but many want connection underneath it all. Narcissists use closeness as leverage, and they rarely show genuine remorse for the harm that they cause. The difference isn't always clear at the beginning, but if you're paying attention, it becomes impossible to ignore.